Welcome to Self Emotional Wellness for Men. My name is Courtney Brame. I'm the founder and the executive director, the podcast host, as well as yoga therapist in training. I consider myself to be a yoga informed emotional wellness practitioner. And I know I look like your typical yoga teacher in the United States of America. And I think that that's something that I'm starting to own and lean into. Yoga's been a huge part of my life ever since 2013. I went through a really difficult time for myself and happened to find that what I sought out, maybe not even through yoga necessarily, like I was looking for something to help me with what I was going through at the time. And a buddy of mine recommended coming to a yoga class. And I was like, man, you know what? I do need to stretch more. And me getting into stretching turned into me learning how to breathe. It turned into me hearing ideas and philosophies. It turned into me uh, being still and listening to the thoughts that I was having. It turned into me identifying weaknesses or imbalances in my own body as well. And I found that going to these classes was, it felt like Pilates a bit, but I slowly started to discover that there was a little bit more depth to yoga beyond the classes that they teach at a gym. I was fortunate to have some really good teachers, one of which who would bring a piece of literature and whatever she was reading at the time, she would share with us like glimpses of it while we're going through the practice. And that's something that always stuck out with me. And she actually suggested that I go into a yoga teacher training. And I did. I went into it. I went into a 200-hour training, and this was a really enlightening time period for me because this was what I was doing during the pandemic when that started. So uh, we started the class in person, and then March hit, and they restructured everything to become virtual. So I went through that, and I learned how to put people in postures, like the stretching physical component. And as I left there was something that was missing, right? Like that wasn't what yoga did for me. That was maybe how I got started, but the things that came for me wasn't being told how to get into a position, getting told how to hold a lunge and stand in your warriors or any of that stuff. But it was more of this mind, body, soul connectedness, awareness. Um, and it did something for me emotionally. Not a lot of things have really expanded me on an emotional level that I've experienced. So, getting into yoga was absolutely something that I can accredit my own emotional awareness to. So I go through the 200-hour, still wanting something more, and I learned that they were offering a 300-hour, which got into more of the philosophy, how to live, the way that people interpret God and spirituality. All of this stuff was so fascinating to me, right? And I would say my biggest takeaway from that was identifying my own relationship to spirituality and beginning to see God significantly different of a way than what I was brought up to believe. And this way more so aligns with who I am now, what my life experiences have taught me, and not just the way that I've interpreted my life experiences, but the way that I choose to interpret my life experience. So there's a lot of healing and growth that happened for me through my process of going through yoga teacher trainings and being involved and going to classes and learning from the teacher perspective, and then consuming additional resources that are out there. I don't know like all of the words. My memory's bad for dates and the language and how to say the words. So I very much encourage people to do their own research. I try and uplift and support teachings in the best way I know how, because my way of using yoga in my day-to-day life is simple is the wrong word. It's unconventional. It's not in a way that you see, and I never want to do anything to be disrespectful of the heritage, the culture of it, and the core of it. So my efforts of continuing education like are very important to me, especially as someone who intends to offer this as something that informs my work. So It's very important to me that whenever there's a thing that maybe I can't say, or if there's like uh, a definition, or if there's a story or something, like I do my best to honor the way that it was told to me, but I do so much like simplifying for the sake of not, getting people lost up in the message. So my intention with today's podcast episode is to share more about that. I've not been super vulnerable, if you will, um, because of the work that I do. Like being open about having herpes, that's nothing. Like the criticism doesn't come because of the intention behind it, and that's nothing that I'm afraid of. Like nobody can say anything to me because I have herpes. It is what it is. However, there's something that is resistant in me to, I guess, being transparent about the fact that like I've gone through yoga teacher trainings as a black man. I'm currently in yoga therapy training as a black man. And the identity thing doesn't get to me until it gets to me, right? Like I look around, I hear some of the language is being used and like the way things are said or how things are said, everything is so universally useful in what I'm learning, what I've learned from my yoga teacher trainings, the philosophy components, to what I'm learning in yoga therapy, for instance, about grief, what I'm learning about emotions, what I'm learning about Ayurveda, what I'm learning about like the elements and how everything is really about balance and imbalance, right? And again, I might be oversimplifying it, but the way that I'm interpreting it is absolutely working and helping me. And even as I go through my current yoga therapy training, I've been implementing that in my day to day work simply as I listen to people, the way that I provide feedback, the way that I uh, offer any type of support. It's very much yoga informed now. So you'll see me look over here. I got notes so that I can stay on topic because otherwise this will be an hour, 15 minutes of me just talking. And I don't want this to be more than like 30 minutes. But yoga itself, right? Like I'm getting into a rhythm of speaking about psychological inaccessibility. When I say psychological inaccessibility, I mean that there are things, while yes, maybe readily available and accessible universally, they that's what they are. But the messaging, the narratives, the marketing, the advertising, where that information circulates, these spaces are inaccessible from a psychological perspective. So I use the example oftentimes of as a straight black man who is straight and has sex with women, I would never have known that a place that serves people with HIV that markets to men who have sex with men would be a place that I could go into to get tested. And along with that, get free condoms and lubricant and education and understanding of what sex acts may put me at risk for other things, right? So that's just the example that I use. But going into that, it became more psychologically accessible to me after it wasn't really an issue because I work in the field. But imagine if I didn't, right? So that would be inaccessible to me. So I kind of had that same thought process about yoga, at least in the way that in the United States, uh, it's access, right? So I went into it thinking that yoga was a Pilates class, right? Like when people talk about go to yoga class, like I don't want to do core and kick my legs and glute exercises. I don't want none of that. And that's what it felt like. It seemed like that. But when I got into it, I was like, oh, there's different types of these classes. And not all of them are called yoga, but also the people who taught it, none of them looked like me. Now, granted, there's the Black Yoga Teachers Association. There's a Yoga Alliance where you'll see different teachers, and there are people who are Black. Who there's a few men, and I'm learning as I go and talk about this and put things out there that there are other Black men using yoga in their advocacy, their activism, in their service work. Because I never wanted to just be somebody who was like, oh, yeah, come to my yoga class, it's $30. That just never really aligned with me. And even now, the way that I want to use it, like I think that it should be something that is of service. Not to say that like you call me at 10 p.m. like Courtney, you said you was doing yoga for free. No, that ain't how this work at all. So integrating what I'm learning through my yoga therapy program into the nonprofit work that I do, self emotional wellness for men. I'm finding that I've wanted to be able to offer and connect people to a therapist, right? Like people talk to me and I do something for them on an energetic, emotional level, whatever it is. Maybe it's just being seen, maybe it's being resonated with. I'm not held to any standards of somebody who has letters behind their name. So you can be real with me and I can be real with you. Sometimes that's, seemingly inappropriate, but more often than not, it's appreciated, at least from my perspective. I've not had anyone complain about that yet. Um, and I've never really had a framework to work from until entering my yoga therapy program. And with that now, um, I I have like I got a thing to offer, right? Like there's movement. Before I just talk to people, make them feel better, they're going about their business, right? But one of the key differences between like talk therapy and then um, yoga therapy is that you are a lot more involved in your your use of yoga therapy than talk therapy, right? So you might have a weekly session with a therapist. Y'all meet for 45 minutes or an hour, whatever you agree to. You get homework, right? And you go do your homework. Whereas, like when I'm seeing with yoga therapy, I'm finding that there's like a much more in depth intake process, like an interview almost. Like I need to understand you, who you are, your lifestyle, right? So you're not necessarily, you can come to me with a problem, but every week it's not going to be this thing happened to me last week and this is how I felt about it. No, a lot of this is much more holistic, and I would say that yoga therapy can be complementary to whatever it is that you are already doing. So if you're seeing a personal trainer for your physical fitness, you're seeing a nutritionist for how you eat, you're seeing a therapist for your mental health, what yoga therapy can do is support what you're already doing and offer these holistic methods of, or this applying the science of yoga, and I think that that's Ayurveda, applying this to your lifestyle. Like we're not necessarily making you completely do a 180 life change thing, but it's really about identifying the imbalances in your life and then beginning to adjust them in alignment with whatever it is that your specific goals are. So I'm gonna check my notes because I be rambling, y'all. All right, so yoga therapy is really just that. It's holistic healing modality that integrates movement, breath, and mindfulness and meditation to support physical and emotional well-being. So you see how that goes with everything else. Now, the way that I think that this is most different from yoga is that it's not a class, right? Like I'm not telling everybody to do the things because even in a class, right? Like if there's 30 people in the class, I may walk around, I might demonstrate the poses, but each person has unique needs. Some people may need nothing. Some people might have been doing yoga for all their lives and they don't need to have any adjustments, right? But everyone's going to feel different in whatever their posture is. So whatever the pose is that they're doing, whatever the breathing, things may come up. So imagine, if that class setting was just one-on-one and we have invitations for interruptions because some people like to go to their class and leave. If we got an hour-long yoga class, we better start with the centering, we better go into the breathing, we better get into the movements of the spine, and then we better go into a flow, and I better get my shavasana, right? But for someone who might have chronic pain, for someone that a particular pose might be hurtful to, for someone who's just, they have like big emotions or frustrations that distract them from being present. right? Like maybe you're jittery and you can't sit still in your poses. This is where that yoga therapy um, that one-on-one time comes in, because we are able to invite this curiosity into the room, into the space with one another. Oh, the definition is different because it's tailored to the individual's needs and can support specific emotional, mental, and physical conditions, right? So I got some stats pulled up here. And according to research by Harvard Health, yoga has been shown to reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression by as much as 40% in certain populations. Now, I have no idea how they do these studies. It's a cool reference point. I would like to do my own study because I always wonder, right? Like psychological inaccessibility. This was a Harvard study. So, where did Harvard get these research participants? How many of them were men? How many of them were black? How many of them were black men, right? So, I would be curious to know if, based on the understanding of various health conditions of black men, as an example, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, these are things that consistently come up. What would that number look like if we were to do some form of research? What are the statistics? What did that survey look like? What did that research look like? Like, I'm so curious because I believe that there's a huge potential for us to get more men, of course, into yoga, but also black men into yoga, and be able to see that this is something so much more than just what we see it represented as physically. Another one is the International Association of Yoga Therapists, IAYT, reports that yoga therapy improves self-regulation, helps with trauma recovery, and is highly effective for treating chronic stress. I'm sorry, not illnesses, chronic stress. And I mentioned earlier that it's very complementary to things like psychotherapy, um, because it creates more of a well-rounded approach to whatever your healing is. You can combine things to address different aspects of your life. But the way that I'm understanding it, when you start healing one thing, everything else cannot not be healed, right? And I'm not talking about a sense of like you paper cut and then heal, the wounds going away. What I mean is that process of healing, whatever that beginning looks like for you, the end outcome is not gonna, there might be a scar there, right? And what we're talking about here is being able to begin the healing process so that we can treat whatever the emotional wound is. Maybe you don't know what it is. Maybe you don't even think you have one. Maybe you don't have one. And maybe your focus is just maintaining what you have so that when or if a time comes where there needs to be some emotional regulation, there are skills, tools in place for you to be able to work through whatever it is that you're working through. Um, Speaking more to the emotional benefits of yoga therapy, right? Reducing stress, helping you with managing stress through mindfulness, breath work. Um, the American Psychological Association talks about mindful practices like yoga helping with emotional regulation, anger management, and emotional release. So I'm currently going through, I read this book, Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, The Pathway to Surrender. The shortcut, simple version of what this book is about is it teaches you to identify, name, and then be able to release an emotion. So emotions are very powerful. If anyone here has ever watched anime, you see that a traumatic event often leads to a superhero origin story, and then an intense emotional response, right? Like Krillin getting killed by Frieza and then Goku going Super Saiyan, right? He powered up this person that we thought was the strongest who's getting his butt kicked. He experiences grief, and then he snaps into this, he releases this power, right? So very similarly, I believe that we all have this like superpower within us through our emotions that we might oftentimes keep repressed because we're not supposed to show emotion, or we're supposed to have them under control. The reality is, no, when you have your emotions under control, this is where we get these outbursts. This is where we get a lot of negative behaviors that happen that we don't even recognize. Like we black out, we snap, we'll participate in a habit, and it'll have more of a harmful impact on us long term than a beneficial one. And one of the things that David R. Hawkins teaches is in acknowledging the emotion, like we give it the space for it to run its course. Emotions happen and they really just need to be allowed to happen, right? And we can look at what holding on to our emotions does for us, which is oftentimes more harm than good. So I have it's going to be 20 yoga classes on the Self website, which is getself.org/yoga, and you'll have access to those videos. It's free. Each class is roughly 35 to 45 minutes, and it's a restorative, slow flow, mostly. And yeah, it's a very restorative type of yoga. And I just talk through the emotions and give some examples from what David R. Hawkins shares in the book Letting Go, of what it looks like to experience those emotions, how to identify them, and then be able to go through the process of letting them go. All right. So um, that emotional release is what I am speaking of. And this is just, again, like I think that yoga should be something accessible and available to everybody. A lot of this seemingly hidden knowledge and ways of being are right here in front of our faces, but they're psychologically inaccessible. Psychologically inaccessible in this setting is all of the yoga studios that have been around me have been led by white women. You see white women in Lululemon going in and out of the yoga classes all the time. And, you know, I might be a little bit threatening or intimidating. And that's my own, stuff that I had thought up. But if yoga's for everybody, right, there's still some problematic people who may not make you feel like yoga is for everybody. However, that's not my responsibility. So in working up the nerve to really hone in on that yoga is for everybody, like I would go into these studios and I'd have some great classes, I had some great teachers, and then something just wasn't hitting right for me. So I had to do it on my own. I like it's been nice to be able to take that, and I see how my experience with yoga and meditation has improved the relationships that I have with my friends. It's improved my ability to communicate and identify my own emotions, and the more like I practice this work, the more practiced I become, right? So it is a part of my everyday life. Like everything that I do is informed from what I've learned in yoga, even if I'm not telling you, the in the words that are used as Sanskrit words, or the I don't like represent what you would think of. I don't know how to explain it, y'all. But yeah, this very much has been something supportive for me. And I hope to be able to just bring it in a way that is more accessible, because a lot of Black men may not go to yoga because of that. Like it doesn't feel safe, right? So I'm virtual, like I'm doing this virtually, and it's my mission, my efforts are to bring this into, maybe we can have like just, I don't like the idea of making something so inclusive that it excludes the people that it's meant for. So when I talk about this too, man, like I really think about my own identity as a Black man, and a lot of the messaging out there of things that are supposed to be for me or targeting me don't. There's a lot of things about me that, when you look at hip hop culture, when you look at the movies and what you see, who you see, when you look at the athletes, like the people who look like me, we don't live the same. Like our values aren't the same. And it feels oftentimes like there is no messaging for me. Being in therapy, even, my therapist is a Black man. What he is a Black man, but we've not worked together for a while. um, there was something I think that I wanted from him that I wasn't able to get from him, and I very much like appreciate the therapy and everything that I've gotten out of it. I learned to I learned language to communicate uh, my thoughts and to be able to practice speaking freely without fear of judgment in a way that the thing that I guess I might have expected to happen didn't happen. Like for somebody to shame me or talk down on me or be hypercritical or judgmental towards me. He didn't do that. And that really did give me the confidence to more so lean into that more, or that something else that I needed, which was this emotional language and being able to identify and be able to be at peace with my emotions, right? And be able to set intentions and know what it is that I want out of life, and go for that, right? Like I tell people all the time, I want you to be able to come to me, get what you need, and leave. And that's a terrible business model. But I feel like that's genuinely what I would want for myself. I don't want nobody to depend on me for years and years. And granted, like there's nothing we can do about that if someone does depend on someone, something. But my whole philosophy is that life is not about what happens to you, it's about what happens through you. Brock from God of War Ragnarok said, the nature of a thing is more important than the form of a thing. The nature of a thing is more important than the form of a thing. So the way that I interpret that is that it's about intention. And so I'm here and making an effort to declare what my intention is in this space, and having created this organization in order in the symposium, the symposia plural, um, going through yoga therapy training, because that shit is hard. And like it ain't cheap. They're helping me significantly, but y'all, this you can't. I'm shocked. I'm gonna be real. I believe that when you lead with the spirit, the needs of the body do take care of themselves. And I can't tell. I don't know where this money been coming from for me to be able to pay for this. And I never wanted to go back to school, but I love what I'm getting out of there. Yoga therapy training. I love what I'm getting out of, or what I've gotten out of my yoga education. And it just seems so like duh that this is something that should be taught way earlier, because a lot of the yamas and niyamas are kind of like what a religious person may think of as the Ten Commandments, right? Like, hey, here's what we do want to do, here's what we don't want to do, and this is like our code for living a good life. And that resonates so much more with me than the Ten Commandments, right? Like, I don't know, but if anyone has religious upbringings, like we can talk about that. But the personal experiences for myself, I'm someone who's had high blood pressure since I was 23 years old when I first went to the doctor, and they always wanted to put me on pills. And I was like, well, what else can I do? I work out, I eat. Like, if you tell me how to eat, I'll do it. But I was able to just like avoid medication for a really long time. And it was finally after getting an understanding like a year and a half ago that it wasn't salt that was contributing to high blood pressure, but sodium, as well as like our breathing being responsible for that. And of course, physical health too. And understanding that really changed things for me. And I was able to bring it down. Like it's not like low by any means, but it's much more something that I can regulate now. And I credit that to my now emotional wellness. Like I'm probably, I'm 230 pounds right now. Like I work out every day. I don't eat the cleanest. Most of my food I don't really season when I cook it. But when I do get to eat out, like I don't care. I'm eating smaller portions. And what I found is just that as I made the decision to really lean into this yoga and the emotional wellness stuff, it has impacted other aspects of my life. I feel so much more clarity, more of a clear sense of direction. I can be intentional. I'm making decisions that align, and the decisions are yes to what's progressing me closer, no against what would take me away from whatever my big picture goal is. And I want to pass that on. Like I'm not saying that this is better than therapy by any means. I'm making it as accessible as I can by putting my face out here, putting my own experiences out here on self. I made it a nonprofit. I got some really dope board members who are really in support of what it is that I'm doing. They all have. I hope to be able to do work with them in some capacities because they all have a story, and I believe that we all do. Everybody has one. Hopefully I get to tell mine through like anime characters. That's a really big dream of mine is to and I'm doing that November 30th. I'm putting together a presentation where I get to talk about emotional maturity as well as vulnerability through anime characters. I love shows Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, Death Note was fire. I'm watching Black Clover whenever that come back out. My Hero Academia. I'm started the slime. That time I died and got reincarnated as a slime. I'm watching that now. Of course, Dragon Ball Z. Um, yeah, I'm pumped for that. talk about creating the thing that you want, and this feels like a really good fit for that. I think that I'm very unconventional, especially in the yoga world. Just being a black man who's really invested, especially in my yoga understanding and education. This shit is not easy. Like I'm in a course right now and learning about pain care and how to be supportive to people who are navigating chronic pain and still giving them the tools that they need in order to not only navigate life but to also be able to continue their yoga practice if they want to. They like movement and they like these things, but it hurts. So I'm developing an understanding of pain and what we know about it and how to navigate through it, not necessarily avoid it or to be like, oh, you suck it up, pussy, right? Like it's much more expansive than ouch, this hurts, that means something's wrong. Actually, it means that there's something we need to pay attention to. Let's look at it. So I'm really hyped to be able to get into this. Like I already know how I want to use my yoga therapy training, and I will be hopefully working with some clients for case studies soon. Um, but yeah, I'm in it, and I do hope that this is something that can be of service to the world. Um, Let me see. What else did I have here? The Yamas. Oh, wow. I just started talking about this. All right. So, uh, the Yamas and Niyamas, right? So, um, the way, how do I have like an aversion to me 10, 12 years ago before getting into yoga. If you said the words to me, I might have been turned off. So I'm wanting to formulate language that is more just like direct and to the point without y'all having to go look nothing up because I gotta go look stuff up all the time. When these teachers be talking to me, they say stuff like I'm supposed to just know it, and I'm like, huh. um, but let me see. Some examples here. Yamas. What are the Yamas and the Niyamas? I said they were like the Ten Commandments. I'm going to do this without looking it up, but I think I'm going to have to look it up. Let me definition of yamas and niyamas, because it's like do these things and then non these things. And I could be completely wrong too. So it says here the ethical principles of philosophy from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and serve as a foundational guidelines for living a meaningful and purposeful life. They're often referred to as moral disciplines or rules of conduct in yoga practice. So the yamas are restraints or ethical standards, and the niyamas are personal observances or disciplines. How these apply to yoga therapy. So the yamas and niyamas help guide not only your physical practice, but how I, as a practitioner, interact with both myself and the world. And they offer a roadmap for emotional and mental well-being, which can be particularly beneficial in yoga therapy, helping individuals confront challenges like anger, anxiety, or stress. So by integrating these principles, yoga therapy provides a holistic way to address the emotional blocks and move toward healing. So some of these nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation or balance, uh, non-attachment, non-possessiveness, and then the niyamas, the guidelines that focus on self-discipline, right? So you want to keep your body in mind. Uh, Purity is probably one of those words people have like a feel to, but I mean, think about what you consume, right? Like, I eat fried foods, I feel sluggish, I don't do things, like I'm mad at myself when I have too much of it. All things in moderation, right? And the same thing when I'm consuming music, right? Like, I got like a ick response now when I hear certain stuff, and it's certain stuff that's just like in my DNA. When a song come on, I can't help but to nod my head to it. And then we got contentment, cultivating an attitude of contentment and acceptance of life. The tapas are discipline, self-discipline, inner strength to overcome challenges. Svadhyaya is self-study, engaging in self-reflection. Then Ishvara Pranidhana is surrender to your higher power, trusting in your consciousness, whatever higher power it is that you believe in yourself, right? Um, Speaking to what yoga therapy, a yoga informed approach looks like, I like to say that my curiosity, I think that that's probably the biggest thing. So in yoga therapy, what I'm learning is the importance of curiosity in the person that we're working with, that's in front of us, right? Like, I'm not here to tell you, here's what's wrong, you need to do these things. I'm more so asking you and inviting you to share with me, what what is it that's brought you here? What are some of your imbalances? You know, like, if there's things you say, oh, I do this too much, I wish I could do more of this. Like, how can we restore balance using your lifestyle and what you already have to work from? And we just build on that. We don't have to like tell you not to do this, stop doing that thing, don't do this, and take this medication. No, it's not that. It's really an interview. I mean, I've been interviewing people for the last almost 8 years, right? And so much of it is interviewing people not necessarily for the sake of other people to be able to understand and hear what they have to say. Now it's about the interview one on one for you to come away with having shared with me in your own words what's doable for you. What does it look like to cultivate a routine? In what ways can we identify our emotions and then be able to work with them? How can we communicate when something upsets us, when someone angers us, right? And what's our own internal beliefs about the emotions that may be coming up for us? Like, these are the ways that my yoga informs my emotional wellness practices. Did I say that right? My that these are some of the ways my emotional, yeah, I did say that right the first time. And then what's the other one? Hold on. I made this outline, y'all. Um, Mind body connection, emotions. Like, I want y'all to like do your own research too, because I'm seeing so many searches. My phone's up here, but I look at how many people on a regular basis are searching for different things like therapy for men, therapy for black men, and yoga therapy is an option. Like, I'm looking and I see how many. I'm running a pay-per-click campaign because Google does offer that for nonprofits. And so as I sit here, like, I'm seeing that some of these keywords people be bidding on are like $13 a click. And some of the things that people are searching, if I can pull it up here, um, hold on, y'all, 1 second. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Men's mental health, signs of depression in men, people looking for a mental health podcast, emotional wellness, emotional awareness, a podcast on emotional intelligence, right? Like, emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman. Okay. Oh, he wrote that book. Um, yeah, so people are like looking for this. And can I see if it's men or women or who? I think red. No, that's different. Okay, I ain't got to go into all my details, but this is something that people are curious about, and that is just like not, it's not accessible. And I hope that in putting this out here, maybe I come across a lot of other yoga therapists that are black men or black yoga therapists in general. But I believe in this so much that like people have always told me, Courtney, you should be a therapist. You should be a therapist. You're so good. I've not been doing anything. Like I just listen to people. I ask questions, right? So what I'm learning in yoga therapy is what to offer for long-term sustainability of what it is that people get out of these one-on-one conversations with me. So some of the offerings are, if you're wanting or able to work with me like along the way of me, again, I'm in training. All right, so I know we have a couple of case studies that I need to do, and for my work I would love to be able to work with someone who's open to this, who's committed to this, who would value it enough to be committed and do the things that I offer, who's willing to come in and be open and receptive to the presence that I would be giving someone. So this is a thing. Uh, if you are someone who's curious about, you hear this, you're curious or interested in trying yoga therapy, whether it be because other things haven't worked or other things are just too unaffordable for you, um, yeah, like hit me up. Let's see what this can look like because I will need to do it for graduation. So that's the thing. As far as like offers or the offerings that I have, there's the podcast, which is a free resource. I mentioned the Letting Go yoga classes. I release those on Sundays until we get to 20. And then I envision doing more like personal yoga classes, like tailored to the individual, maybe not recorded, but the Letting Go yoga series is really, really impactful. And I want that out into the world. So another way to work with me, I offer donation-based one-on-one support calls. So if there is something that you just want to talk about, you need some kind of emotional support, I'm happy to offer that. It's just whatever you can donate, we'll do it. Again, this is a nonprofit, so I'm doing what I can to just make things accessible, make things happen. And as people find these resources, I'm hoping to just be able to help them. I think that's it. I'll talk here all day, but hit me up, y'all. I hope y'all check out the Black Men's Emotional Wellness Symposium on November 30th. It's at 10 a.m. You can register at getself.org/events. It's free or donation based, whatever it is that works best for you. I got four presenters who are going to be, or four men who are going to be having conversations on deconstructing the high value man. So we're deconstructing it and we're looking at what a spiritual man looks like. We're looking at what a fit man looks like, and not your traditional lens of fitness, as well as what a man of integrity looks like, and then what a vulnerable man looks like. Shout out to Black Men's Wellness in Portland, Oregon. Durrell hooked us up with sponsoring this event. Last time I spent a lot of money I ain't have, but I had to get these presenters paid to make that thing happen. And this year he was able to sponsor the event so that all of the speakers can get paid. So now, whatever we sell tickets wise, like these are just donations that come in itself that'll help us with sustaining and maintaining what we have as we continue to expand and look for other opportunities for funding and grants. And who knows, maybe we can put some stuff together in person. But the big thing here is I'm offering yoga therapy as I'm in training now. This will be the thing that I do with my career. I've already been doing it, and now I have more of an approach to apply to the individuals that come to me for something. I've never like provided a product or service. So this is new, y'all. This is new. And I hope that y'all investigate yoga therapy and you see for yourself, like, is this something for you? And I'm happy to set up a call and talk if to see if this is in fact something that we would be able to work together on. All right. Till next time, y'all. Thank you.